Hello and thank you for watching. This is Jennifer Bowman with learnpiano, and this is video 26 in the 30-day overview of Chopin's Nocturne in C# minor. In this video, we will just cover one measure. It's measure 55. In my music, it's the first of the scales. So it's this measure here. Harmonically speaking, we're going to have the same thing for 4 measures. All the scales have the same harmony. Start with a C# minor harmony, and then we have a C#, which does happen to be in the chord, but it's also serving as somewhat of a pedal tone. And then our chord is D#, F#, and C#. If we stack that up, we get a diminished 2 chord without the 5th. Often you don't need the 5th in a chord to figure out what chord it is because it doesn't give us lots of new information. So basically this is what we've got. It's kind of like a vamp. Minor 1, diminished 2, minor 1, diminished 2. So he's just going slightly away from home, home being C# minor. Left hand fingering is just 5, 3, 1, 2, 5, 3, 1, 2. And so in terms of technique for the left hand, we'll float off here, little crescendo here, so the left hand can help shape that crescendo. Because this is an overview, I'm not going to talk in this video about how to fit the scale together. So what I'm going to focus on in this video is how to practice the scale itself and how to get it quick and fast. All right? Okay, so first we're just going to go over the notes of the scale. The piece is in C# minor. So you can either think of the scale as a C# scale, natural minor, okay? And the scale itself would start on the D#, and then end down here on G#. Or if you haven't practiced a lot of minor scales, you might know that C# has a relative major, and that's E. And if it's more likely that you've practiced an E scale, then this is using the exact same notes and same fingering. So it's basically an E scale, but starting on D#, ending on D#, and then ending on G# on the bottom. So the fingering will reflect the fingering of those scales. 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2. In terms of the position, you want to play on the tip portion of your fingers. You can find that position by finding what I call the grip point. This is the point at which you're playing on your tips. You're not too high, you're not feeling like you're going to fall over, and you're not too low, which might make you play more with flat fingers. So you roll up, find that grip point, you can feel it. Notice where your wrist is. Once you found that grip point, then notice how your thumb is resting on the keys. For my thumb, it's just the side of my thumb. The next step is taking a look at where your arm is in relationship to your hand, keeping it nicely supported. Then, the next thing we're going to have to think about is the fact that most of the scale is on the black key, so there's a little bit of imbalance between the thumb and what other finger? 2. We have to find the right amount of pressure between this so you're not dropping or pressing it too hard. Same thing here. This is going to feel a little lighter because it needs to be so it matches. Those are all the physical things. Then, in order to get a nice even touch, we practice it a lot of different ways. First way, I like to start forte because I like to make sure I have all the right notes and I'm playing them with a nice shape. And I'm also not bouncing my wrist. I have one onset, one down motion, so to speak, and then I'm doing everything else with fingers close to the keys. I might do a staccato. Staccato being just touching the keys and then moving. I'm not making it staccato like that. I'm just... Then I might do some rhythms. while doing all these things, I'm trying to keep my hand as even as possible with the support behind it. Then I suggest playing it legato at different increments of volume, starting with forte. By the way, you're going to have a tiny bit of accent on the top simply because you're changing direction, and I think that's appropriate. So let's try that mezzo forte now. Hands are super close to the keys. You're moving your thumb under and doing your crossovers very quickly. Mezzo piano. Piano. PP. So as we're going through all of those different volumes, you're listening for evenness. What I want you to focus on especially is just feeling how when you get softer, you're really just barely touching the keys. So tips for playing it faster. Ideally, you would have one kind of down gesture for the whole scale. So you kind of get set and then you just let your fingers go as quickly as they can above the keys. So how do we build that in at a faster tempo? One thing that we can do is this little exercise at mezzo forte. I'm going to add one note at a time. That's the exercise. So I did it for you right there at mezzo forte. Then you do it piano. You have to get your fingers used to what kind of touch creates the different volumes. We're going to address two more things with regards to the scale, then we'll go through the hands together elements. So if you look at my score, which is the one I've been doing this whole overview with, my scale has a slur, but the second half of the slur has a bunch of staccati. Now, about half the editions have it like this, and half of the editions have it smooth. So I just want to show you how to approach the staccati. If you choose to do them, I think they sound really beautiful, but I think it sounds beautiful both ways. For all the scales, you want to have your hands super close to the keys and you want to be anticipating all the crossovers and cross-unders. To practice the staccati, you actually practice them legato. So once you've got that done, and then you're just going to lift your fingers up just the tiniest bit. So you're going to be going like this. So I'm just lifting off. You'll probably see it better with the side view. So let me play that with the pedal. Here's with no lift off. Here's it with the staccato touch. It just gives it a little bit of sparkle. So now let me go to the side view here so you can see the hand wrist from the side, how high the wrist is, how close the fingers are to the keys, and the staccato touch. Side view, we're going to go over a couple things. The first thing is finding the position. So you find your grip point. I'm going to use E major 5-finger position to do this. So I go kind of under the keys because I want to find the correct height for my wrist. You can feel it when they're at the right grip point. I can feel that my fingers are gripping the tips of those black keys. Notice the height of my wrist. Notice the thumb, where you're going to play on the thumb. Once you have your grip point, you're just going to try to keep the arm behind it. You don't want to drop when your thumb goes down like that. You want to just play on the tip of your thumb, and you've got to do lots of practice to match how much the thumb is touching. Then you want to anticipate the next note. You're keeping your fingers very, very close to the keys. A good exercise is to practice all of your crossovers. for quickness and for no bumping. And then the final thing I want to show you is the staccati. Without them, it looks like this. With the staccati, you're just going to lift off a little bit higher. Here's without, here's with. Not a ton of difference. Here it is with the pedal. Just gives a little more sparkle. All right, so now let's put hands together. I'm not going to talk too much about how to line up the rhythm in beats 3 and 4 because I do that in detail in the other video on scales. Let's just talk about pedal first. You'll pedal on beat 1 and on beat 3. So just 2 pedals. Dynamics, I like to keep this whole ending section soft. So we might end on mezzo piano from where we came before. But then as soon as we get to the scales, let's just have different grades of soft. We'll have a slight crescendo between beats 3 and 4, and I'm gonna let the left hand guide that, although I don't want the left hand really to be super loud. Right hand might give a little sparkle, very top, and then fade out. So maybe I got to MP there. I don't generally use the soft pedal at the end because I like the sound of the sparkly staccati under that slur, but I want you to consider it as an option because it really sounds beautiful. Listen to this. So definitely an option. In terms of push and pull, I know it doesn't say rallentando yet, so you might keep this first one a little bit more on the straight side because as we get further into the piece, we are going to have a lot of slowdowns. That said, you can stretch a little bit. I like stretching at the beginning of the scale just to make sure I can set that piano. And then I like to stretch a little bit into the next measure. So something like this. And 2 and 1. Always kind of refer back to what's our initial tempo. 1 and 2 and That's something I like to do a lot, is try to make it relate to each other. What tempo were we at the beginning and how can we start this coda so it makes sense with where we started. One viewer had a really excellent point, and that viewer said that they practice these scales at the end for weeks at a soft tempo before putting the hands together. And I think that's great advice. When we're learning a masterpiece such as this, the best thing you can invest is time in the piece. So give yourself time to work on these scales. So that is it for today's video. So I appreciate your support in whatever way you are supporting this series. And please write to me in the comments. Let me know where you're from. And as always, thank you for watching.